Hello everyone, my name is Tim and welcome to Licensed Gaming. Today's franchise is a series that's gained quite a bit of a cult status among Disney fans and hardcore gamers. A series that, while not the best, has managed to draw in the crowds in today's hectic world of video gaming. I am of course referring to the game series Epic Mickey.
Alright, for those of you uninitiated, we've got a little bit of backstory to cover first. Epic Mickey was a video game series created in the late 2000s by Disney in order to bring some popularity back to their iconic character, Mickey Mouse, who, at the time, had been relegated to some very interesting roles.
Miska, Mooska, Mickey Mouse. Say it with me.
Mother of God! Because of this, Disney was looking towards this game series to help bring Mickey back to his 1930s roots, paying homage to many of his classic cartoon shorts, as well as jump-starting the career of Walt's original character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Despite its flaws, the first game became a cult hit due to its much darker tone than most things revolving around Mickey Mouse, such as the series taking place in a forgotten cartoon world called Wasteland, and some very interesting and disturbing initial design choices.
Oh, you creepy bastard.
Because of this, the creators at Junction Point Studios felt that the next logical step for the series would be to create a sequel. You know, a sequel that ironed out all the flaws of the first game and improved upon what it brought to the table. A game that would truly be worthy to be called part of the Mickey Mouse legacy. A game that could be enjoyed by generations of gamers all across the whole entire... And sadly, that's where things went horribly wrong for this game. What should have been an awesome follow-up to such an innovative idea, especially when Mickey Mouse is concerned, turned out to be one of the worst follow-ups to any game franchise, period. Not only does it fail to improve upon the most basic flaws of the first game, but it's a mess of clashing design choices that not only failed to come out as a product, but also took an entire game company down with it.
You dumbasses!
Wow, 2 games in and you're already closing down the studio? That is quite the accomplishment, I must say. However, with all that said, is there any redeeming value to this game despite the criticism that it's received? Well, let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in and see if Epic Mickey 2, the power of 2, has what it takes to be licensed to game.
So our story begins with Yensid, the creator of Wasteland,
I am a sorcerer!
spouting off some exposition of events pertaining to the last game as we see the forgotten toons of Wasteland begin to rebuild their homes. When suddenly, earthquakes! Because plot device. Convenient, but whatever. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the Mad Doctor, one of the villains from the first game, shows up with an army of robots proclaiming he's changed his ways and now wants to help protect the Wasteland from incoming evil.
Friends, I stand before you a changed man. I've seen the error of my ways and now I've got a plan.
Right!
I don't believe you. Obviously not buying any of the Doctor's crap, Oswald, his girlfriend Hortensia, and their friend Gremlin Gus contact Mickey through a special TV screen in order to have him return to Wasteland to find out what's really going on. After that, Oswald and Mickey journey across Wasteland looking for the source of Wasteland's destruction, defeating some really forgettable baddies along the way, and finding out through a series of incredibly unsubtle plot twists that the Mad Dog just might be a great big liar, pants on fire.
What an asshole!
Right off the bat, we can see a number of problems with the storyline alone. For instance, if the Doc has been gone since the second game, where has he been this whole time? Second, the story has seen a massive change in tone from the first game, going from a cool, imaginative take on the Mickey Mouse formula back to one of the most basic Mickey Mouse good versus evil plots I think I've ever seen in my life. And third, the singing. I know it's a Disney game at the end of the day, folks, but who in the heck thought that having the Mad Dog sing every single line of his dialogue was a good idea?
Mickey, you don't trust me, yes I know. I can stop the earthquakes now! To be a toon.
It gets ridiculous, and by the end of the game, you're probably sick of just hearing the Doc singing alone. Though I do have to give credit where credit is due. The rest of the voice cast does a great job with their respective roles, including Brett Ewan in his debut performance as Mickey himself, and Frank Welker as the voice of Oswald. Although, does he sound a little familiar to you?
I'm trying to figure out who sabotaged the projectors. Ian, we gotta talk. Okay, that doesn't sound good.
Okay, gang, let's split up and get to the bottom of this mystery.
Sadly, not even a decent voice cast can save this game from what lies ahead. To start with, let's talk about the gameplay. Now, Epic Mickey as a franchise doesn't really break any new ground when it comes to game design. It's a 3D platformer in which you must traverse through many colorful locales, fighting off enemies, collecting items, and defeating bosses. You do this by playing as the duo of Mickey and Oswald. Player 1 controls Mickey, who can shoot a limited supply of paint or paint thinner from his magic brush to either attack enemies or alter your surroundings, or you can use the spin attack to give foes a good old-fashioned bop in the head, or to destroy objects for certain goodies. The computer, or player 2 if you happen to have a friend with you, controls Oswald, who, much like Mickey, also gets a spin attack, but also gets a hover jump that can allow him to glide over obstacles or over bottomless pits, or uses remote control to utilize access ports for level progression, or to stun enemies with a short burst of electricity. When it comes down to how the game controls, it's fine. Mickey responds the moment you move the analog stick or press one of the face buttons on the controller, and he responds quickly during moments of rapid movement or during intense platforming sections, which becomes imperative in later parts of the game. Sadly, the problems have already started even as we speak. Let's talk about Oswald's control. Oh boy! As I said, Oswald is controlled by the AI, meaning that he is programmed to respond to certain prompts made by the player in order to help complete certain tasks or to help Mickey pass over certain obstacles. However, this means that Oswald has a mind of his own during most of the gameplay, meaning you may need him to help you perform some tricky jump or defeat a large group of enemies, but for the most part, unless you physically call for him using the help button on your controller, Oswald will either stand there like a moron as you try to fight off an army of these bloodthirsty beasts, or jump into the fray when he suddenly feels like it.
Screw you!
It gets infuriating, especially in later parts of the game where Oswald's skills are mandatory in order to continue progressing. But that's not all. A bad AI character in a game is bad enough, but this level design has got to be some of the laziest that I've ever seen in a licensed game. Because the game was designed to have two players playing at the same time, the level design had to be made so both Mickey and Oswald's skills were accounted for. As a result, they're flat, consisting of linear, empty hallways with almost nothing of interest to be spoken of in them, or large arena-like settings with a few enemies here and there to get in your way.
Oh my god!
Now, I know most of you gamers out there will be asking about one of the fundamentals of any video game. Where are the collectibles? You know, like the coins in Super Mario or the rings in Sonic the Hedgehog? Well, they're hiding in very specific treasure chests and destructible objects that are spread across the levels to offer the player some sort of variety. The collectibles come in three varieties: scrap metal, which is needed to help repair certain parts of the wasteland for level progression, e-tickets, which allow the duo to buy healing items from a few designated shops around the levels, and cloth, which allows you to obtain costumes that can be used to upgrade both Mickey and Oswald. And by upgrade, I mean besides a few very basic extensions on the amount of paint or electricity the two can carry, the costumes are, for the most part, completely cosmetic.
Wah, wah, wah.
However, for having good control and at least playable level design, the game just barely passes the gameplay test. Next up is presentation, which is actually pretty decent. The heart and spirit of Disney is captured beautifully in the colors and overall look of the levels, with tons of nods and references to lots of older Disney media, and the character animations are all pretty fantastic. However, there are a few flaws with the game's overall presentation. First off, pretty much all of the NPCs use the same character model across multiple areas, a design practice that, while I understand as it eliminates the need to model extra characters for the game, still baffles me for how lazy it is, as, for the most part, you will be seeing the same stock character models in multiple areas of the game over and over and over. With all this taken into account, presentation, I'll give it decent. Last up is difficulty and lasting appeal, which I have to say is probably the game's biggest strike against it. Like I said, many of the levels have little to nearly no enemies in them, making a good chunk of the levels teeth-grindingly boring. As a result, you would think the boss battles would be a little bit more challenging and strategic to make up for it, right? No! I have no idea how the development team managed this, but the boss battles are literally the worst part of the game. Epic Mickey uses sort of a punishment reward system where, depending on if you use paint to restore the world or thinner to erase it, these choices are supposed to have effects that make the boss battles unique depending on which one you use. However, what really happens is that it cuts the boss battles in half. You heard me right. If you go through the game using paint to restore Wasteland and help the resident toons, you are rewarded with the complete boss battle. Using thinner to destroy the world usually means a path opens that skips half of the fight. What was the point of this? I get the fact that they wanted to cater to the gimmick of allowing Mickey to misbehave, but shortening the boss battles? I mean, come on! And as for the rest of the game, it's basically what I've been saying this whole review. If the bland story won't bother you, or the Mad Doc singing doesn't make you want to rip your ears off, you'll be sorely disappointed to see that Junction Point Studios and Disney thought this was acceptable to release. The only other activities to do in the game is running around the few towns and villages doing fetch quests for everyone, and they honestly could not be any more dull. Most of them don't even involve having to leave the area that you're in, which makes them all the more uninteresting and all the more forgettable. And your reward for these quests? A bunch of stupid, useless collectible pins that are meant to act like buying actual pins from the Disney theme parks. Folks, do I even need to say what this game warrants? Really, folks? There's not much more I can say at this point. The game, no, the franchise started out with so much promise that it could have been the next big thing for Mickey and Oswald, harkening back to their glory days of the 1930s. But instead, we get a broken down, half-assed sequel that not only failed to improve on any of its predecessor's problems, but wound up convincing Disney to close Junction Point Studios down for good. It's such a shame that so many creative ideas were put into this franchise only to be taken away long before their time. It's a game that I can only cautiously recommend to hardcore Disney fans or anyone else who may be extremely curious about it. But for anyone else, stay far away from this one. There just isn't anything to offer here. And it's on that note that I have to say that Epic Mickey 2, The Power of Two's licensed to game, has been revoked.